All right, it is my absolute privilege to bring to the stage at the time the one and only Keith David!
Hi fans, this panel recording was brought to you by those alien hunters over at 80stees.com. They have the perfect shirts for anyone who wants to fight off an invasion, or go on intergalactic adventures. Use coupon code FSDavid to get 30% off your next order. Visit 80stees.com today. Now, on to the panel.
Okay.
Hey, we made it.
Yeah.
Woo. How you doing, Keith?
If I were doing any better, I would have to take something for it.
This is great. Thank you. This is such an honor having you here this weekend.
Well, it's my honor to be here.
Well, I kind of wanted to start. I guess maybe a week or two ago, I had the privilege of seeing your new film, Nope, which is just, have you guys seen it yet? It is superb filmmaking. I wanted to ask about working with Jordan Peele and what his process was like.
Oh, it's great working with Jordan because I love working with directors who know what they want, are clear about what they want, and are able to communicate that. You know, so I mean, and that's exactly what he does and who he is.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it because he started making these films because he wanted to make what he felt was missing, and so he filled the gap.
He sure did.
And he certainly fills the gap.
Yes.
So,
yes, he does.
So it was an honor and a privilege to work with him.
That and the rest of the cast too. I mean, just
everybody was
so
superb.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And obviously, you've been part of so many different types of films and projects. Obviously, horror. You've been in war films like Platoon, which is, you know, one of the greatest films of all time. I wanted to ask because I had read something about when you were working with Charlie Sheen. Was there any stories that you can share with us from set?
Maybe if we were to sit in the bar one day and have across the table.
Deal. Okay, we'll do that. And obviously, the rest of the cast too: Forrest Whitaker, Tom Berenger, and of course the delightful Oliver Stone. Any other relics you can lend us, maybe apart from Charlie Sheen?
You know, Platoon was like my second movie. The Thing was my first movie, and I thought, well, I got a little bit of honorable mention, you know, when it came out. Yeah. It was a fun time, and I thought, well, maybe I'm going to have a life in the movies. And I didn't work on a film again for 4 years. That's the way that goes. I mean, that's just the way the business goes. But and then my next film was Platoon. From Platoon, which is now 30-something years. The Thing is 40 years old. So it's about 36 years old. In the last 36 years, I've made at least one film a year, and several more since.
That you have, yes. You were incredibly prolific. It's like when I was doing research for this, I'm like, there's no way we're even going to cover 1/16 of everything that you've been part of, but we will try our best. I know one of your other first roles, if you can confirm, was actually on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood?
Mr. Rogers was probably my first television. Yes. I was working in Pittsburgh doing some Shakespeare. And I don't remember, I mean, you know, my God, it's over 40 years ago.
Sure.
So I don't remember exactly how it came up, but I got a job on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So I was like, okay. And it was great fun. Mr. Rogers, I mean, of all the people who, what you see is what you get. That is who he is. He is just a very quiet, gentle man. He is a Presbyterian minister. Oh. His ministry was to children between like 6 and 8. That was his target audience, and he did that extremely well. I mean, nowadays I guess you would call it, you know, on the autistic spectrum, but in those days I had a friend who had what they used to call a hyperactive child. And, you know, when he wasn't engaged in something, he was just all over the place. He'd be running around. The energy was just manic all over the place. But when Mr. Rogers came on, Brian was glued to that television and listening intently. You know, it was a lesson in concentration, because he hung on every word. If we were to come into the room talking while Mr. Rogers was on, he'd go, "Shh, Mr. Rogers," and it was like, wow.
Got his focus.
Look, yeah, I mean, it was incredible. You know, the way he was able to get those kids to focus, get, you know, all children to focus, and talk about things, talk about life things, adult things, without playing down to them. He didn't condescend. One of my favorite episodes was a thing called War and Peace. And he talked about how adults get into, how wars are started and how adults get into arguments, and when they don't settle them, they fight. But there is a way to settle an argument without a fight. And it was really just wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, so it was a great experience.
What a magical, magical man. To pivot ever so slightly, one of my favorite artists of all time is Nat King Cole. And
Ever so slightly.
Ever so slightly. And you sing his music like I've never heard before.
Oh, gee
There
whiz.
is nobody that sings it like you. Do you have a favorite Nat King Cole song that you like to perform?
It depends on the day.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, one of my all-time favorite Nat Cole songs is a wonderful song called "Making Believe You're Here."
Yeah. And where did your love for Nat King Cole begin?
As far back as I remember, I always loved Nat King Cole. Well, and sort of even pre-utero, I guess, because you know, I mean, obviously, I was when his show came on, it was just before I was born. So if I saw any of the originals, they were repeats, or you know, as much as they repeated in those days. But my mother had a boyfriend before my father. His name was Donald Isanison. And Donald, I got to know him very briefly. We met, and Donald was a Nat Cole imitator. And he had a wonderful voice, and he used to walk around singing Nat Cole songs. I don't know if I've ever really heard him sing. I just knew he was a singer of Nat Cole songs. So, and I knew my mother loved Nat Cole. And there was just something about, I've always felt we were kindred spirits.
I love that. I love that so much. Thank you for keeping his music alive as it should be.
Well, I appreciate that.
We appreciate you. So you mentioned before that you were doing Shakespeare plays, and I know that you've done a lot of theater as well. Mm-hmm. What would you say, maybe besides the obvious, is the biggest difference between being in front of a theater audience and being in front of a director and producer on set?
Well, let's take this room for example. Right now I'm in front of a microphone, so I don't have to use very much energy to be heard. If I were not talking on the mic, I would obviously have to speak a little differently. That my intention doesn't change, but the amount of energy expended is slightly different, slightly lifted. On the microphone, I don't quite have to speak that loudly. So, to me, it's just it's a different use of the energy. I wouldn't play, if this room were half the size, then I wouldn't even need a microphone, probably. But under certain circumstances, like when you're in a nightclub, I've been in nightclubs that are a quarter of this size. And, you know, but you don't sing acoustically. The nature of the genre is that you use a microphone. How you use that microphone is always different. when I'm in the booth. When I'm in the booth doing voiceover recordings for animation or for narration, there's this close mic technique, which gives a slightly different sound. It gives you a different feeling. And you can feel, I mean, your auditory system will already make the adjustment, you know, I mean, it's a different, your listening is different when I'm this close to the mic than when I'm this far away from the mic. So there's a shift in how it makes you feel. So, as the performer, you want to be aware of that, because then, you know, it depends on what feeling I'm trying to evoke. Does that answer your question?
Yup, and I could just listen to you speak all day. What I wouldn't give is like your voice is. So if it's okay with you, we're going to take some questions from the crowd. I guess there's okay.
Please.
You just have to project if you don't mind.
Yes.
We have 1 minute. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm John. I'm a big fan of yours from there's something about Mary, where the heart is, Armageddon, and of course your role in Delta Farce. And I want to know what your thoughts are on the production with Larry, the cable guy, and Bill involved during the production of the Delta Farce.
I happen to know the producer of the what do you call them, the blue collar comedy guys. I know the director, and so I had a relationship with those guys before we did the film. I've seen them several times performing, and they're funny as hell. I mean, the blue collar comedy is very funny stuff. So, and if you know anything, if you know those guys, you know that anything starring Larry the Cable Guy is going to be outrageous. So it was great fun. You know, it was really, you know, it was as close to, you know, kind of slapstick that I've ever done. You know, I mean, it was sort of back to Three Stooges kind of comedy, right?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, it was great fun.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Gamer is one of my favorite movies of yours.
Really?
Yes. But Goliath as a child was amazing, and Deadly Force is ahead of its time. What did you think when you read the Deadly Force script when Elise gets shot by Lexington? What was your thoughts on that?
Again, you know, you know, let's go back, relate that back to Mr. Rogers and how, now Mr. Rogers was more direct in talking about, you know, war and peace and how children, parents should be responsible, especially with weapons around the house, and how children should be, you know, also responsible for not playing with weapons that you don't understand and you don't know how to use just because it's in the house. I thought it was a fantastic portrayal of what happens when you irresponsibly leave weapons around. And again, it wasn't willful negligence. It wasn't like hanging around just out in the open. I think, as I remember, it was 30 years, you know, I mean, you know, some years ago. Brooklyn got a hold of Elise's weapon as she laid it down, being curious and not knowing anything about the weapon, accidentally discharges it. And it happens that quickly. I mean, it's that, you know, I mean, fortunately, she only got hurt. Many people, the person handling the pistol or anyone around them, there have been untold stories of unnecessary deaths because of weapon irresponsibility. I thought that episode was just a fantastic depiction of what to do and what not to do. Because, I mean, and without being didactic, it didn't hit you over the head with, you know, it wasn't shaking a finger at you, but it showed you just exactly what could happen if we're being irresponsible. In the irresponsible, both in not watching our kids and making sure that, you know, the weapons are never around them and available, or not keeping your eye on them when you know that there's a weapon in the house. So I thought it was great. You know. Yes, sir.
First off, glory to the Arbiter.
All right.
I have just two questions for you, just real quick. One, my first movie that I've ever seen you in was called The Quick and the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the best portrayals of, you know, of that timeline, and you played it phenomenally, by the way.
Thank you.
So one, I was wanting to ask, what was it like working with people like, you know, Gene Hackman, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio, you know, Russell Crowe, Sharon Stone, all those guys. And my second question was, can you give us any intel in regards to what 343 has for you?
Of what?
Of what 343 has in store for you as the Arbiter.
To the second question, I have no idea. And if I told you, I'd probably have to kill you afterwards.
It would be an honor.
And as far as The Quick and the Dead, I mean, again, you know, listen, man, I'm an actor. I like to work. And, you know, I love Westerns. You know, I had done a Western prior to Quick and the Dead called The Last Outlaw. And so it was a, you know, I mean, the only thing I didn't get to do in that movie was ride horses, which would have been my other great love. But I mean, I got to hang out with Woody Strode, Lance Heinrichs, and I mean, all these great actors I just got to mix and mingle with and talk to when the camera wasn't rolling. It was fantastic. It was a marvelous experience. Do I wish I would have gotten one shot off before Gene shot my face off? That would have been nice. But it was, I mean, it was wonderful. You know, Gene also is a man who comes from the theater. So it was absolutely, it was breathtaking to play with an actor who also throws the ball back at you.
So you get starstruck yourself?
Oh, I should, yeah. You know, I mean, I try not to show it. I don't shake and shit. But yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
How did you get involved with that wonderful show, Rick and Morty?
It was an invitation. Somebody gave me a job.
Any stories?
Huh?
Any stories from it?
None that you would want to hear. You know? I mean, you know, no. I mean, you know, I had done Community, and Dan Harmon was starting a new show. Had started a new show because Rick and Morty had been on for at least a season or so before I came along, and then he asked me if I'd come. I think my first role was Reverse Giraffe, and I don't know what season it was in, you know, but that was the first one, and then I think Reverse Giraffe came back again, and then it started growing from there. So, and in fact, I just finished one, so I'll be coming in this coming season. But it was great. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was wondering if there are any roles you've been really passionate about that you don't get to talk about very often.
Dead Presidents. Had a wonderful time with that. Wonderful time. It was, again, because I've made an executive decision. not to play certain kinds of people, especially if it's written stereotypically. I'm not here to fulfill your fantasy of what you think black people are alike. So, but if I feel, no matter what his occupation or preoccupation or whatever they do in this story, if I feel like you understand their humanity and how they got there, why they are like they are, then, you know, then I can embrace that. So, I mean, you know, that's what I look for.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Definitely, thank
Good,
you.
thank you. Yes, this young lady in the blue hair.
Okay, so Dr. Facilier was my favorite role that she played, but what's your favorite role that you've been?
Usually I would answer that saying whatever I'm playing now, you know, my current job. But Facilier was absolutely one of my favorite jobs. Absolutely, you know, bar none. I am in something that I cannot talk about right now when I get a chance to sing. But you'll just have to wait for that. Yes. Yeah.
First of all, hail to you, King Andreas.
Yeah.
I remember the first role that I heard you in. It was the cat from Coraline, and I've spent so many years since I started rewatching cartoons, looking for your voice and trying to find you. And I'm just curious, which voice acting role did you have the most fun playing, or voicing, I should say?
Again, I mean, it's you know, I am blessed and highly favored because I get to live my dream every day. When I was a child, I wanted to be an actor. And I have gotten to be an actor for the last 42 years. So, you know, on my worst day, I'm living my dream. It's not, you know, I mean, and that's not a bad dream or a nightmare. Even though there are nightmarish things that may happen during the course of my day, it's all good. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't have bad days unless I exhibit some behavior that that I'm being irresponsible for. In my conscious mind, when I'm in my right mind, I don't behave badly. I try to catch myself before that moment happens. In my nightmarish moments, I start acting out some shit that I didn't mean to do, you know, or that I have to go back and apologize for. And I don't really like to do that. I don't like to have to apologize. But at this point in my life, I don't mind apologizing for something I'm responsible for. If I did it, then I want to own it. But I try not to do bad things or things that I'm going to regret or things that are, you know, ugly and distasteful. Then I don't have to come back and apologize. You know, I may have to come and clear some shit up, you know, but I don't have to apologize. And there's a difference. I mean, and this is just my public service announcement for the year. You know, when I was a child and growing up, there's a word that seems to now be extincting itself from the language. But when I was a child, there was a word, one word, that seemed to be a magic word because it was understood in every language, in every culture, in every neighborhood. If you were in a crowd of people, or you were passing somebody, if you bumped somebody and you said, "Excuse me," people would give way. People would just part, you know, oh, okay. if they bumped into you and said, excuse me, you go, oh, no worries. You know, I'm not hurt. It didn't kill me. You didn't mean it. Now people would rather say, I'm sorry, than excuse me. And they'll bump into you, they'll walk up into you and walk around you. They'll stand there awkwardly trying to maneuver around. Do you want to get by? Come on. You know, what is that? So I graciously caution you to be gracious, hear it when it's said to you, and use that word as much as you can. It's a wonderful, wonderful word. It's magical. It's polite. It's courteous. It's a gift to your fellow man. It's really a gift to yourself. So, anyway.
After hearing you say it like that, I am never going to forget ever again. It is in my brain with your voice, and I will now always say, excuse me. You hear that?
Yes, young fella.
How does it feel just to be in the show Rick and Morty?
Like I said, it's a job. In this day and age when we are almost 3 years into a pandemic, I had a job. You know what I mean? So I was making a little bread. That's always a good thing.
We have about 10 minutes left, Keith.
All right. Yes.
What was it like playing as the Voodoo Man in Princess and the Frog?
Didn't you just hear me say that? I had a job. It was fantastic. No, well, let me. Not only did I have a job, but I got to sing. I'm a singer. And, you know, most people don't know that unless you've seen my nightclub act, and you'd have to be in the town that I'm in to see that. Or seen me in a play, a musical, in which I had to sing. So, but that was, you know, and I got to join the pantheon of great Disney villains. And of those villains, I think I'm pretty high up on the list. Yeah. You know, I mean, not because it was me. I mean, it may not have something to do with me, but it was wonderfully written. You know, I mean, so I just did my job. Yes, Edvard Munch. Yes.
So my name is Isabel, and unfortunately I haven't seen a lot of your stuff. I'll definitely have to. But I was first exposed to you as you were Spawn in the recent Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when they added that DLC, I played, and I heard your voice acting, and I was like, wow, that's a really cool voice. And my boyfriend, who's like a nerd, was like, you gotta look into him. He's like one of the best voice actors ever. Anymore. So I just wanted to ask if you could say hi to my boyfriend, his name is Caden, and just tell him that I'll always be better than him in Mortal Kombat.
Is he here? No. Oh, hey, Caden is his name? Yes. Caden, you're not good at Mortal Kombat. She's better than you. But keep playing. Yes.
You've gotten to play some characters who are there in a story right from the beginning, and some characters that come into a story later, such as in Community or even in Star vs. the Forces of Evil, where you took over the role of Foster. And so my question was, do you think you prefer getting to play a character who's there at the beginning, where maybe you get to help shape the world as the writers are writing it, or do you think you prefer coming into an established world and getting to play in a sandbox that's already really well created?
I'm going to say this again. I like to work. So does it matter if I come in season 1 or season? Well, I mean, yes, there is a difference. It doesn't matter, you know, if I get to create the character, but And it's wonderful coming in on the ground floor and creating the character and being part of the world that it's being in. That does make a difference, of course, and I love that. But to be invited to the party is, you know, an honor and a privilege. It's great. And especially if it's very if it's not popular, maybe it'll become popular. If it's on its last legs, and you know, I came in Community in its last season, and we all wanted it to go to extend. It didn't, but we had a great time while we were there. And I mean, you know, for me, it's a wonderful lesson. I mean, you're asking me all these things, and you know, sometimes you're asking me the same question 3 times. But and I just said to say that, you know, I mean, it's a great exercise in staying present. You know, I mean, if somebody offers me a job, I want to do the very best that this opportunity presents. And I'm not going to sit around bitching and moaning about, shit, I should have been here from the beginning. And there are people who do that, not just in my job. I'm sure in your job, there's somebody who comes on and all they can talk about is what they don't have, what they could have had, and they should have been here, you know, it would have been so much more organized if they'd have been here Really? Shut up. If it's that uncomfortable, get out, do something else. Nobody wants to hear all that bitching and moaning.
Yeah, amen.
I mean, life is hard enough, isn't it? You know what I mean? My contention is, listen, there are things to complain about. There are many things to complain about. If you have to complain, then complain to somebody who can do something about it. Telling me and all your friends in the bar or at lunch, don't do nothing. Tell it to the boss. He can do something about it. She can do something about it. When you come home, you know, you don't want to kick the dog and beat your spouse. I mean, nor does your spouse want to hear all that bitching and moaning about what they can't do anything about. After 10 minutes, you're dumping. You know, reporting is one thing. That's okay, you know, honey, you need to vent, you need to get something out, go ahead, get it out. Okay. I can't do anything about that, babe. You know. After that, it's no longer useful. You know, and it upsets you and those around you. It just makes you unpleasant, and nobody wants to, you know, somebody that nobody wants to be around, and you don't want to be that person. Why? I have a rule about that, just for myself. You know, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? And does it need to be said now, really? And if I ask myself those questions, and sometimes it's like, yes, I have to say this right now. Other times it's like, you know, maybe I'll hold on to, I'll wait. Many times, if you do wait and don't say anything, that moment will pass and the issue will resolve itself. Either that person or that situation will come to understand that something's not right and will right-size itself. Or, if you have to say something, you'll find the moment and the entity to address that, so that you're not walking around with a pole up your ass, and they're not, and your communication doesn't put a pole up their ass.
We're actually at time. Do you want to take one more final question?
Oh, yes.
I just want to thank you for coming. We were ready to visit with you when you were going to be here last time. So thanks for coming back. But I want to thank you for your example. I've been a parent, still am a parent, and my child is 40 years old. I have parented. I didn't just have a child. I want to thank you for the verbiage I have heard from you today of responsibility. You didn't attack like the word guns. You had it in your conversation, but you said responsibility. And as a parent, thank you.
Thank you. I do have to run, but I can take another question. Yes, ma'am.
You were in Cloud Atlas.
I was.
And you played so
You won't hold it against me, do you?
No, I actually love the movie, and I wondered what it was like, if it was enjoyable playing so many different characters with so many different costuming and major changes.
Okay, I'm going to say this again. I'm an actor.
Yeah.
And the name of my game is to play. And I got to play more than one character in the same piece. I mean, oh my God. How much fun is that?
Because some of those were...
Oh, and listen, it's hard work.
Yeah.
But that's what I spent my life training to do. If you're an actor, well, I'm using actor as craftsman, and I have spent years studying my craft, so that one day I get to execute that craft by using the tools that I have accumulated. The same, I believe, would hold true if I were a carpenter and I got to build a house. If you're well trained enough, then you know where to delegate the responsibility, where you know exactly what the time it takes to do whatever that is. And sometimes that work is very tedious, but the blessing is you know how to do it.
Yeah.
So, and if you've agreed to take the job, you're also being paid well enough to not have to bitch about anything. Does that answer your question? Okay.
This has been such a joy. I know you mentioned before you're blessed, but I feel like we are also blessed that we have the privilege of watching your masterclass time after time. And thank you for everything that you imparted upon us, like she said before. I think the way that you look at things, your perspective is so beautiful, and I think more of us need to be present in that, live in the moment more, and understand the world's not so bad. It's just, you know, we need to change our perspective a little bit. Use excuse me more. So thank you so much. Thank you. Just thank you. It's been an honor. Pete David, everybody.
Hey fans, just a reminder that this panel recording was sponsored by 80stees.com. Go check out their awesome shirts and use coupon code FSDavid to get 30% off your next order. Because at 80stees.com, they chew bubblegum and sell awesome t-shirts. And they're all out of bubblegum. Visit today.
Hi, this is Bonnie Gordon, and you're watching Fandom Spotlight. Make sure to like and subscribe before the self-destructs in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just kidding. Have fun and follow your fandom.